One day I'm gonna be everything I wanna be. I don't let it get the most of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be everything I'm gonna be. My future right in front of me. One day I'm gonna be free. I wanna be free. So let me be free. One day I'm gonna be free. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Yeah. One day I'm gonna be free. I'm standing at the crossroads. I'm feeling like a lost soul. Don't know where I wanna go, but all I know is I wanna be free. They're telling me to let it be, but that just ain't in me, no. Jealousy and envy, but all I see is I wanna be free. See everything I wanna be, exactly what I'm gonna be. Don't let it get the most of me. Eventually, I'm gonna be free. See everything I wanna be, exactly what I'm gonna be. Yeah. One day I'm gonna be free. I'm gonna be free. Let me be free. One day I'm gonna be free. Mentally and physically, emotionally and spiritually. Yeah. One day I'm gonna be free. I told them take their aim off me. Stop trying to get a name off me. If they would just let me be, I'm gonna be free. I told them take them chains off me and throw away the locks and keys. If they would just let me be, eventually I'm gonna be free.
They're back.
What up, though? 7 days. We're back again for another episode of Dominant Effect. I'm Marsh Bishop. We got Mike Ball, Aaron Olinger. What's up, everybody? Glad you was able to click in with us tonight. We got another interesting story that we're going to break down for everybody. Before we get started, though, I'd like for everybody to hit that like button. That way we can get this out on the proper algorithm and get some numbers on this thing this evening. So today everyone is saying that this Iran war thing may be calming down a little bit. The peace talks are happening, the deals are being discussed. But what if I told you that that's not really what's going on right now? Behind the scenes, Iran is getting an economic squeeze. The U.S. is tightening control on the global oil routes, and this so-called peace might actually be setting up for the next phase of this war. So tonight we're going to break down what just happened this week. That way this might be able to be said that this is not too far in the near future that this may go down. So today we're going to be talking about something that looks like it's cooling down. And like you said, when we've been watching news lately, they really haven't been saying a whole lot. You know what I mean? It kind of seems like every time something else goes on, it kind of like they push stuff to the side to where you're not really paying attention to this no more. Now everybody's focused on this. So if you see, that's been happening quite often. But so now you've been watching the headlines over the past week, and you've probably seen things talking about talks and negotiations, possible deals, and even hints that this could actually slow down. But when you really start digging into what's happening right now, you realize something. This isn't a de-escalation. This is more of a repositioning phase. And in my opinion, we're seeing right now that this is a setup for the next phase. Like I said, that's just my opinion. But let's break down exactly what's been happening over the past week so everybody's on the same page. So I basically saying they're willing to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which is one of the most important oil routes in the world. But there's one condition. They want the U.S. to ease up on the blockades and essentially bring the war towards an end. Now, on the surface, that sounds like you heading in the right direction and you heading towards an actual peace agreement. But that's where this whole thing is interesting. Iran did not include any agreement to limit or stop their nuclear program. And that right there, I feel, is the actual core issue of all of this. Mm-hmm. I mean, now they broke it up and talked about little things here and there. They talked about regime change. They talked about the news. They talked about the Strait of Hormuz. But I think that the nuclear deal is by far the most prominent thing that should be talked about in this particular situation. So what you have is one side offering a partial deal and the other side saying, that's not enough for me. Now, there's another piece that doesn't really make the headlines like it should have either, and that's that these talks aren't actually happening directly, face to face. They're being pushed through intermediaries, and you have other countries acting as like the middleman between the U.S. and Iran. And when those negotiations have to go through multiple layers like that, that usually means trust is low, and the chance for a clean agreement is probably even lower than that. So what do you think about that, Aaron?
Well, I agree with you 100%. I mean, right now, Europe and Asia is becoming increasingly dependent upon crude from America. They're sending their ships over here. Europe, by the end of this month, was going to be out of oil. Japan, Australia, and even China is running out at this time. The war has basically triggered the largest global energy disruption that the world has ever seen. And U.S. became a net exporter of crude for the first time since World War II. We're talking 6.4 million barrels a day is what we're exporting. Trump has caused, due to this war, has caused global Brent crude to go up to $119.37 a barrel. U.S. West Texas crude is at 106.91. What that has an effect on is China directly. China was buying cheap oil from Venezuela and getting cheap oil from Iran. And the way they ran gold and silver up on us, we just ran energy up on them. But the U.S. imports, where we were importing oil, has fell to 688,000 barrels a day. So keep in mind, we're exporting 6.4 million barrels, but we're only importing 688,000 barrels. So somewhere down the road, this is going to tap into our reserves if it's not already doing so, because that's a major export that we're doing. And then right now, Trump is considering extending the blockade to put more economic pressure on Iran. But the blockade could plunge the rest of the world into either a recession or depression at this point. It's hard to say, but the whole world is tilting on the edge of a cliff right now, watching this situation. Iran says the blockade could lead to unprecedented military response. They said that they're not going to continue to take this blockade. They're losing $345 million a day that blockade is going on. Plus, their currency has hit an all-time low. Now, it was already going down, but I believe it's below 50 cents on the dollar right now, and it's crashing. So, both sides have had an opportunity to rearm at this point, but who is going to adapt to the tactics of the other the quickest is who's going to have the upper hand if fighting resumes. But I'll stop there for right now.
So real quick, I want to go into the aspect of the title, right? We use the word fake peace exposed. So tonight I want to challenge the word peace because what we may be witnessing is not peace at all, but a strategic pause, a pause where the headlines calm down while the machinery of conflict keeps moving underneath the surface. Military assets remain in place. Carrier groups are still deployed. Missile defense systems remain active. Intelligence operations don't stop during a ceasefire. In many cases, they accelerate. Nations use quiet moments like this to reposition, reassess, and prepare for what's coming next. At the same time, the real battlefield may no longer be just military, it's economic. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most important arteries on Earth for global energy. Any disruption there impacts oil, shipping, fertilizer, insurance rates, and ultimately the price ordinary people pay around the world. Missiles grab headlines, but tanker routes move economies. And even if direct confrontation cools, conflict doesn't necessarily disappear. Proxy groups remain active, regional militias, maritime attacks, cyber warfare, and covert operations can keep pressure high without triggering full-scale war. Peace at the top does not always mean peace on the ground. So the real question tonight is simple. Are we seeing a genuine peace or simply an intermission before the next phase? And to me, I just see this as halftime.
You're 100% right on that.
Yeah. My opinion is when you actually look at this situation, and it becomes clear why these talks aren't actually going to be as solid as they say they are. Now you think about this. Then the U.S. is not going to agree to a deal unless the nuclear issue is discussed. Okay, and then you have Iran that's not going to agree to a deal. That means that they have to give up their leverage, which all stems around what? Nuclear power. You know what I mean? Because they just said, oh, I don't care. I'll open it straight back up. I don't have a problem with that. But you have to, in turn, let us be able to enrich this uranium. So what you end up with is a lot of these negotiations happening, but there's no actual movement there. They just going back and forth, 2-3 days, leaving empty-handed, right back with the same stuff that they had when they came there in the first place.
Well, what we know, by the way, anytime we know something, it's especially from the U.S. government, that's going to always kind of cater to votes as well. And so that's kind of the hard part with this whole problem, right? And that's going to go for each side of the equation. That's not just in particular to us or anything, but it's wildly different than what politicians on either side of the scale, meaning Iran's side or our side, is saying.
Exactly. I think these talks are just both sides' way of buying time. Gives them time to reposition, resupply. You got a lot of talk back and forth, a lot of propaganda going back and forth. The little crazy videos that they've been posting, have you seen those? The little music videos that they've been sending over here. Basically talking about a bunch of shit, but still, there's been a lot of that going back and forth, and each of them are trying to apply pressure a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But both sides actually kind of benefit from dragging this out, at least for the short term, because the U.S. keeps pressure on Iran without committing a full-scale war, and Iran uses the tension to kind of maintain leverage, both politically and regionally. So what looks like a failure to them might actually be strategy to see how far that they can basically hold you out to see if you're going to actually agree to this. Like, okay, so what we're dealing with is oil. That's the biggest thing that everybody's complaining about is the oil. A lot of these countries are almost tapped out of their reserve that they're digging into. You know what I mean? So everybody's wanting them to hurry up and get this fixed as quick as possible. Now, understanding that, yes, we can easily make this deal and open up the Strait of Hormuz, but what is the cost to that? You know what I mean? You allowing Iran to keep enriching uranium is not a good thing for anyone that's even in that region. That's why they came up. Aaron was talking about last week how the Saudis gave the U.S. like this immaculate deal for them to keep fighting over there because the last thing that they want is for Iran to end up being an actual power over there. What was the I don't remember the actual numbers. Do you happen to remember that, Aaron? The actual numbers that they offered the U.S. for them to continue to fight over there? I forget the actual number, but it was like some outrageous amount. It was like $1 trillion for this, and they was going to buy so many billions of dollars in military weaponry and all kind. I mean, it was ridiculous numbers.
Yes, I have it right here in my notes. I'm gonna read it to you. The Crown Prince wants Trump to finish the job. He's going to offer this mega deal. It's $100 billion to cover American war costs. Now, we are, I think we're at like 25 billion to date so far that we've paid into this war. They're willing to cover $100 billion of American war costs. And I'm not going to send no Saudi troops to fight. So we're going to lose American lives, but they're willing to pay for the whole war. They're willing to give us $1 trillion in new U.S. investments, which would be jobs to Americans, $500 billion in American weapon purchases, which that's going to help our weapons industry considerably. The package also includes full Saudi-Israeli relations after the regime change. They also will put a new pipeline to Israel because Israel don't produce oil to the Ashdod port, so that they will pump oil straight to Israel. They're willing to do a powerful new U.S.-led defense alliance in the area. They also want a joint naval force to control the Strait of Hormuz and Bab el Mandab, the port there. And then they want to they're willing to pay for the funding to U.S. bases in Israel. So we don't have to pay for anything. They're going to pay for all that. And then they want to do a joint fund to rebuild a secular, moderate Iran. So, and that's the problem right now. Iran is kind of split. Their government, half the forces is on the extremist side. They want to continue with this war and win through attrition. The other half, including the president, wants to make a peace deal to save the country's economy because he don't think that they can go long term and maintain civility with their population. And half the population supports the moderates, the other half supports the extremists. So they're kind of having a power struggle among themselves right now. But I'll stop there.
Well, you know, the real battlefield when you think about that whole scenario over there, and then based off what you just said there, the real battlefield with that is energy.
Yep.
Now, let's talk about what this war is really about at this point. And it's not just about missiles and military strikes anymore. Mm-mm. It's about the energy. Mm-hmm. And the Strait of Hormuz is responsible for moving a huge percentage of the world's oil supply. Well, I mean, we actually only get 1% of that, but everywhere else around the world, it comes from there. And when that gets disrupted even slightly, that sends shockwaves throughout the whole global economy. Now, you think of the Strait of Hormuz as like a valve. When it's open, oil flows, peace stabilize, prices stabilize, world keeps moving. If it gets tightened, twisted, just a little, prices spike, panic arise, everyone around the world feels it. So it isn't just about a location. It's about that particular part of the world is a pressure point for the entire global economy. And that's why the US moved in with that naval presence. And that's why Iran is now using that as leverage, because they both realize what's really at stake here. Now, Iran's willing to make this deal with the US right now and open up the strait simply because they're losing money.
Mhm.
On the Iranian port side.
Right.
Right.
They losing money. So they still trying to figure out, like, okay, we're losing money over here. Our economy is basically going to crap. Let's make a deal. But they want to make a deal to where they're still where they can actually like save face, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, okay, like I may have gave up and opened up the strait, but I got this out the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And the US is never gonna go for that. The US ain't gonna go for it. You got the UK, all of them. I mean, ain't nobody going for that, because by doing that, you actually change the whole dynamics of the Middle East, because you know they're gonna come up with a nuke. You know they are. You know what I mean? And there's already been reports that North Korea had already given ballistic missiles to Iran, and had also gave them an intercontinental ballistic. Now, that was just the reports that had been came out. Now, I haven't heard a whole lot about it after it was said. It was
Me
like
neither.
it was said, and just as quick as it was said, it was gone.
Maybe they just reported it and then realized, oh shit, we were wrong, or it was right and no one's just talking about it. So it's a toss up.
Right. So it kind of went back and forth there. Now, Aaron, you was talking about earlier before the show started about something that was going on with the UAE and the
Yeah.
oil.
Yeah, Mike, if you can put up picture 2, that right there
Right.
shows OPEC oil production by country. And then go ahead and go to picture 3.
Okay.
Okay, right now UAE is wanting to exit OPEC. They live just outside. They're kind of across the strait from the Strait of Hormuz. And some of their ports is outside that strait that's under contention. So they're in a position to still ship oil to the world. And UAE wants to break away from OPEC and flood the market with oil, which would collapse the oil market if they could come up with the amount of oil, because right now they're only supplying 4.85%. If they could come up with at least half of what's up on that screen, they could collapse the price of oil. But the negative of that is they're going to get a military response from Saudi Arabia, because that's going to impact the Saudi economy. A lot of these countries, not Brazil, but Venezuela, Russia, Iran, for example, their money is based upon the cost of oil, what they export. That's what gives their money value. If you collapse the oil market, you're going to greatly hurt the Saudis. And UAE could find themselves in a war against Saudi Arabia because they're just trying to get paid right now. They're outside that strait. They can ship oil and they can flood the market and make as much money as they can, but they're going to get a negative response from their neighbor and could end up in a war with their neighbor if they pull such an event. But I'll stop there.
Real quick, Aaron.
Yeah, go
Jason
ahead.
asked a question to you, actually. How many days before Iran's oil supply overflows and their sites back up too much and essentially shut down beyond repair?
Man, that's almost at the point right now. That's the reason why they're losing so much money. Their oil production has greatly went down because they're running out of storage space. Now there's that one sea that's between Iran and Russia that Iran can ship on that has no United Nations ships or anything on. And that's one way they can get stuff back and forth to Russia right now. But We could blow it out of the water if we chose to.
You're absolutely right about that, and people don't know necessarily because we don't live there, right? So, but I would say the normal average American isn't like studying the Middle East, But nonetheless, so as everybody knows, this is the Strait of Hormuz, what we're talking about here. But what Aaron was specifically talking about is this little body of water right here, the Caspian Sea.
Right.
And that is, right there in between Russia and Iran. And this is where the aid actually goes, and a lot of like different shipments that in the past from anything, this is where usually it travels right here. So just for a little context, Aaron, you were absolutely correct on that.
Okay.
Oh, so they've been basically hitting it on the back door, going back and forth. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, now this is where things start to get real serious, because focused on whether the bombs are dropping and if there's another war, and how much more money is that going to end up being, and what's happened in the background. We have the whole economic war. Now, Iran's exports are getting hit. Industries are shutting down, just like we was just talking about, and the production is being disrupted. But we're already seeing parts of their industrial sector being forced to cut back heavily, like we were talking about earlier. And when you hit a country's industry like that, you're not just hurting them today, you're affecting their ability to recover tomorrow, the day after that. Now, what's the long-term damage? And here's something that people really aren't talking about. If Iran can't export its oil consecutively or consistently, it's not just losing money. It's going to, like you just said in the message, it's going to damage that whole infrastructure on that long-term basis.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But what about the actual global impact to all of that as well? Because anytime that oil routes get threatened, sometimes that supply chain gets disrupted and it doesn't stay open. I mean, it could be over a period of time. A lot of times it is not. But if it does happen, like of course, gas prices shooting up, shipping costs increase, the inflation pressure bills, like we was talking about last week about the actual paper price of oil based, and what is it really, the actual real price of it, so when we was talking about oil being $100 a barrel or $115 a barrel, that's not the actual price. That's the paper price that they pencil whip to, to make you think like, okay, oil just went up just this much, but it really didn't. Actual oil is actually 200, and like if it's 115, it's actually probably like 220 once you add the shipping fees,
totally,
and all the extra cost that comes along with it. But most people just see like, oil went from 56 to 119. No, it didn't. It's well over $200. So
real, I wanted to just tap on this because you brought it up right there, and it was a great example. Is, as you guys know, there's the strait that's right below. As you guys know, over here is the Strait of Hormuz over there. And then just below is Yemen. This is where this strait is. I forget the exact name of the strait, but anyways, it's a bottleneck right there. And this is usually the route for Europe right here. So you'll see a lot of oil being moved from here and then going through this strait. And then, yes, and then into Europe over here. So what I wanted to explain, though, is if you guys see this crazy traffic right here, this is all marine traffic, by the way. And so these are, every one of those triangles are a ship. Okay. And this is a shipping route that you guys see going all the way around, all the way from over here, going down below South Africa and then going up around Africa all the way to get into Europe. So look, they're not taking the risk going through this strait right here, right? So could you imagine the amount of fuel cost per day on each one of these ships? Now, I used to fuel these ships for a living. It's what I did for a decade. And I would fuel these ships up with anywhere from sometimes a very low amount, maybe just 5,000 barrels. And then Other amounts, I'd fill them up for 50,000 barrels of fuel oil. And anyways, the amount that is the global pressure that is happening here and what we're seeing on an economic level, especially for shipping, because there's a misconstrued notion that these ship owners and shipping agents, all these guys make buco bucks and all that shit. No, they do not. They barely turn a profit, to be real. I mean, they really do, for the amount of liability and risk and all that shit. They really don't make as much as they should, in my opinion. But nonetheless, could you imagine being a ship owner and having to reroute your whole thing to go down below Africa and then all the way back around when you could have just cut through here? But your insurance is saying if you go through here, then we are no longer going to cover your cargo, so that's why you guys see such a force right here. But I just wanted to bring that up.
And let me add to that, Mike. There's an additional threat if you're going to be selling around Africa, and I saw it this week in a couple news reports. The Somali pirates are back active again. I mean,
it's active right now, man. Look at the action out there right now.
Yeah, they done took over 2 oil ships that were full of oil, brought them in, and I guess they're selling the oil themselves. And they tried to take a 3rd tanker, but wasn't successful on trying to board it. But I mean, there's just inherent risks when you go on those longer routes, and then you got the daggone Somali pirates waiting for you out there, the little speedboats trying to catch up to you so they can board you. I mean, those container ships should have weapons on them so they could protect themselves. The fact that they have to run unarmed is why these pirates feel so emboldened, knowing that they're not going to run up against no real force to be able to stop them. But I'll stop there.
You were saying something earlier, Aaron. We was talking about the chokehold. It was
about the force majeure.
Say it again. About what?
Was it about the force majeure? Was that?
Yeah.
Iran declared that this week. They declared something called force majeure, and what that means is they cannot fulfill their contracts with the different companies and the different nations of the world. They don't want to get sued for breach of contract. So when you declare that, what you're saying is, by reasons beyond your control, you cannot fulfill those contracts. And they declared that this week. I know some people think Iran's still making money. No, if they declare force majeure, they're losing money right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you think that's probably the reason why they're actually wanting to talk about opening the strait now?
Oh, most definitely.
I mean, but you would think though that if they're about to lose that much money, right?
Yeah.
To the point that they have to get in touch with all these other companies and say, okay, we gotta put this in play because of the blockade, we're not able to fulfill our part of the deal here. You would think that they would be more apt to let's just go back to the deal that we already had set up back in 2015, and let's just call it a day. What do you think?
Well, I think that's very true. But Iran is also preparing for if Trump continues with this blockade. I mean, they clearly said, and this is a quote, that there's going to be an unprecedented military response if they don't stop, and because they're not going to let this blockade continue. They can't afford for it to continue. So they're actually threatening our Navy with an unprecedented response. Now, during the ceasefire, they did purchase an awful lot of anti-ship missiles that can dodge in midair from China, and they're hypersonic speed. So the threat's there. I do think it's real, but it's going to come down to training of the people. Are they trained and qualified to use that sophisticated equipment, or will that equipment actually have Chinese operators behind it to fire and make it perform the way it's supposed to? Because so far in the war, China's stuff has only performed up to 60% of its capability, which I equate that to failure in training of the people operating the systems, but also consider some of our blocking technology that we have on the wild weasels and the growlers and things. I feel that our people have performed exemplary with the amount of material and what they've had to work with. I mean, prior to this war, the newspapers have lambasted our military, calling it a volunteer military. It's not worth anything, but our people has performed exemplary and have very little losses to be an all volunteer force. I'll leave it up to you.
Mhm. So, which one do you think? Either one of you can answer. Which one do you think is the biggest risk right now? The collapse of negotiations, or the overall energy disruption?
Overall energy.
Yeah, easily overall energy, because right now it's running the potential of plunging the world into a major recession or depression. The world can't take this. Iran might sit back and say, well, we might try to win this through attrition. Well, the world's not going to wait for you to win it through attrition. Somebody's going to interject or intercede somewhere. And I'd be afraid for them to have nuclear weapons. They could shut down that strait anytime they want with a single nuke. And it wouldn't even be safe to even go through that area if they did such a thing. So they're out of their mind if they let them have nukes. But I'll stop there.
Well,
But it's not nukes that's only the problem in the region. It's there. I mean, truly, it's being understated in the media and especially in the United States aspect. But I can promise you, the Pentagon's one of the main points of contention is their missile program, their ballistic missile program, and their hypersonics. That's a major problem for our quote unquote ally Israel over there.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that you guys have seen. That's why missiles have been discussed in negotiations and then dropped out of negotiations and then brought back into negotiations and brought back down. So it's like, it's the same thing with the nuke stuff. But yes.
And see, you have that trade thing that China set up called the Belt and Road Initiative. That's the new Silk Route, but it extends all the way from Asia to Europe. China is currently making $3 trillion a year from it. By us choking off the oil and energy to China, and we got Iran in the middle of the war. Iran is like a major vertebrae in your backbone, in the middle of your backbone. You take that vertebrae out, the body can't support itself. They need Iran to be open for trade so that they can bring that route through there and then go up on the rest of the way toward Europe. If China decides, as they're thinking about, ceasing all exports to the United States, they're totally counting on the Belt and Road Initiative. And with Iran being in the middle of a war with the United States, that's not even viable right now. And then we're choking off China's cheap oil so they can't produce.
And now they're buying from us.
Yeah, they're buying from us.
I mean, the first 900,000 barrels hit 2 days ago at China, where we sold it to them. Now there's, I think, 3 so far that we've sold, and a batch of ships like that.
This is a control measure because China was almost overtaking us in technology, and they already have overtaken us in production. So by choking them off like that, we're kind of slowing down their machine, and we giving them what we're willing to let them have, which they've already dropped down to a 4-day work week where they was working 7 days a week over there. So that's major on slowing down China right now.
Real quick, this guy right here, Roman, listen, not that I, go based off of facts or anything, but let's go ahead and bring up the Strait of Hormuz right now, homeboy. Let's go ahead and see how much traffic is going through right now. Yeah, zero. And you know what this would look like with all these triangles right here? It would look like a shipping lane. Let me show you what a shipping lane actually looks like, doofus. That's what this is what a shipping lane looks like. That's where you see movement going in and out. No problem, right? Yeah, port and starboard, right? Port to port. And then up here, yeah, nothing happening, bro. So I don't know where you guys come up. Oh, what? Iran didn't fucking shut down. There's ships going through it right now. No problem. Shut up, doofus. Anyways, go ahead.
Okay. And, you know, what we need to understand is in 2025, we entered a new era. Okay. AI has come out. We're entering a new technological age that's going to extend to 2035. Any nation that wants to lead during this time period has to lead in energy and technology. And China right now is our rival for that leadership. And right now, we're controlling energy. If you want it, you got to come to us. You got to have your hat in your hand like you're begging for porridge or something, and we'll sell it to you. But you
Real
got to
quick,
buy it in American dollars. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I gotta say something real quick. We got a Dusty raid. My man Flow State coming in super high over here on the stream. I appreciate that. Much love, honor, respect to you, kind sir. Appreciate the raid, by the way. Smoking Spaceman, great to see you, by the way. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of things around the world that's actually going on. Like you said, Aaron was talking about the 4-day work week. Then they've been shutting times, you know what I mean, to be able to try to conserve. There's also been a lot of cyber going on as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had even things over here where they were talking about at one point setting it up to where based on your license plate as to what days you are able to drive and different stuff. I mean, like it's a bunch of different stuff going on. It other than the gas going up right now, which everybody knows hitting their pocket. You know, I just seen the other day, like gas here was like $3.60. And then
We got up to $4. I was
and
like,
then yesterday, and then now it's sitting at like $4.18. You know what I mean? It's just jumping up. I mean, the only good thing that's happening on my end right now is that my truck is flex fuel and I can use E85 and it's cheaper. You know what I mean? So I'm not paying $4 yet. You know what I mean?
well, there's a give and trade
$4.
to everything, right? Like, I mean, I'm going to be honest. For instance, my stock portfolio is killing it. You know, I mean, I guess it's all the way that you look at it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's go ahead, Aaron.
Okay, I was going to say other shortages that are impacting the pockets of Americans right now is jet fuel for one. Europe is almost out, and the cost to get on a plane over there is 4 times higher than what it was before. But jet fuel has sharply increased over gas right now in the United States. As of today, a steel shortage is being declared. So I don't know where we're getting our steel from, but apparently the ships aren't making it over here right now. Food shortage, we're seeing inflation, and we're expecting a 20% increase or higher by the end of this year. Diesel fuel is higher right now at the pump. It's affecting trains, farmers, and truckers. Fertilizer is in short supply and has gone up in price, and so has ammonia. And we have U.S. oil stocks are starting to plummet right now. And like I said earlier, the war has cost $25 billion to this date. And then they're saying that there's going to be more shortages to come over the next 8 weeks. So the shortages is going to definitely impact our pockets.
Well, I mean, listen, if we have shortages now, imagine what it'll be like in 1 week from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. Listen, we're a channel that we talk about preparedness, and we talk about things on like 3-day level, 4-day, 5-day, 7-day, 21 day, not let alone 6, 7, 8 weeks. If you're on a shortage now, imagine the problems. I mean, on a humanitarian problem level, that they'll be at.
And let me add one thing to it. And I'm not trying to scare everybody. I'm just telling actual facts. Iran announced in the last 2 weeks that if they get to where they can no longer fire rockets and drones, which is their main offensive weapon right now, the next step is to bring the war directly to the American shores through cyber attacks and sleeper cells. We've seen that there has been some lone wolf attacks, but no coordinated attacks, thank God. But there has been in the last 2 weeks cyber attacks on our water treatment plants and some banks, and it was traced back to Iran. Now, I don't know how they trace that stuff, but they definitely accused Iran of the cyber attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably with the help of Russia, you know.
Right. But you also got to remember, though, this isn't, now we talk about the oil and all that, but you also got to think about what is it that we actually use other than gas that has oil, you know what I mean? Oil-based products. I mean, because right now, oil-based products basically constitute over 6,000 everyday items that we use.
Yes,
You know,
it's almost in
from
everything.
right, from plastic, synthetic fiber, polyester.
Yep.
You got regular transportation fuel, gas, diesel, pharmaceuticals, paint, asphalt, personal care items like shampoo and lotions, petrochemicals. The list goes on and on. Household and household maintenance stuff. You know,
Shit, Vaseline, your
detergent,
shirt.
waxes, adhesive, roofing materials. You know, the list goes on and on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, artificial limbs, hospital beds, safety glasses, all this stuff uses oil products.
Artificial limbs. Look, this is built by petroleum, motherfuckers.
So when you're thinking about this, it's not just one thing. Like, yeah, this is one thing, but it also counteracts and goes into multiple things. You know what I mean? So when you talk about the shortage, a lot of people just think that you're talking about, you know, gas. I mean, it's not just gas. It's about everything else that they use that oil for other than just that. You know what I mean? So when that gets tight over here, it's gonna get tight on everything that goes down. Yeah, you're right. Fake nails, weave, all that. Yeah, all that's being used. Yeah, all that. Yeah,
It's
so
everything.
yeah, so it's gonna put a stranglehold on everything. Like I said, some things right now you can actually see that like the prices is going up on. You know what I mean? You go in the grocery store now, you see a lot of this stuff is getting higher. It's getting higher daily. You know what I mean? So we're not going to be exempt from this global economic crunch. We're not.
Also, one thing on the gas aspect, you know, these gas stations, this is another aspect, another weird aspect. They're very quick to raise those prices. But as soon as like oil starts going down and it's trending down, they are so hesitant to bring down those prices. You know, so it gives these guys kind of like almost local leverage to keep that price kind of as high as they can until they are forced to bring that down by basically an open market where you can go down the next corner and get it cheaper over there, and that's where it forces it. But yeah, absolutely.
See, they try to be slick on that too, because like I said, when they go on and, you know, let's just say, for instance, they come across the tube and they say something and all of a sudden prices jump up. Okay, well, you already had gas in your tanks. You didn't get no gas that day. You know what I mean? So why would
you didn't import that from over there or whatever, bring it here, and it was already sitting there. You already bought it at that price.
Right.
So I feel like you should kind of have to base it off of what you bought it at. But now here's the thing. Even ships do the same thing, right? So you'll have ships that carry 2 million barrels of oil, right? 2.2 million barrels, mega ships, mega tankers. And they, guess what? The ship owner will call and be like, hey, you guys are going to anchor up outside the harbor there until we tell you you're going to go unload that shit. And that happens all the time. I mean, every day. Like, this is like not a once in a blue moon thing. This is all the time. And the incentive, because it's already in their tanks, right? But hey, they could squeeze a bigger margin if maybe they wait a day. Maybe if they waited 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, and they can actually profit. And they would rather pay the anchorage fees in the harbor, because to them it's a drop in the bucket. You know, we'll just pay to anchor outside and we'll wait it out. You know, we can afford to do that. Right. I mean, what's it to you to wait a day to make an extra $2 or $5 million profit or something, right?
Or they'll just sit out in international waters and do the same thing.
No, that's facts. Absolutely. I mean, there's times that these ships get where they go and they go and now they're just going to do a loop out there, a big loop until, and just do it at slow, just what we call sticks ahead. So that means, you're just, instead of neutral, you're just one click it ahead. Now you're just idling kind of real slow, and they just kind of just cruise around in this big 40-mile radius, Yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, Aaron, I'm gonna come back to you for a second. Now, this is something that's right in your expertise. So, right now, based on what's going on, I mean, everything that we talked about tonight, there was no propaganda. Everything is exactly what it is, and we know that this crunch is going to come sooner than everybody expect. So, your words, what do you think that the average person should be doing now before they actually see the full force of this crunch?
Okay, Mike, give me pick number 1 up, please.
Sure. Here we go.
Okay. Right now, while prices are lower and things are cheaper, you should be spending an extra $20 a week. That amounts to $1,040 in a year in preps that you can put back. That is a lot of food if you're willing to go to $20 a week now before prices start to change, because we can expect to see changes occur over the next 3 to 4 months. And whereas before we basically, I was going to save this for my close, but I'm going to mention this one thing now. In the past, the biggest thing that caused people to become violent the quickest and for civil unrest to happen, if you looked at any time in history where there were revolutions, where there was major civil unrest or something, food was at the core element. When people go hungry, they become violent and uncooperative quickest than any other cause. So keep that in mind, that right now, in the past, when we begged people to prep, you could prep at your leisure. You could do it as you wanted. And, you might say, I might only prep 1 week in a month, and that's good enough for me. Now that we've entered this new period where AI is in there, the new robots come out in 2030. No. We are no longer in the era of prepping at your leisure. We are in the area that your prepping must be, I would say, intentional with a purpose in mind.
I was just about to say with purpose.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because
Yep.
we no longer can wait. You can no longer wait. Some people getting started now, you hear some people say it's almost too late. Time is running down. I mean, I've had years to get my preps in place so I could prep, like I said, at my leisure and when money was good for me, when I had the extra. But now, with shortages coming and those container ships aren't coming through, and
Mhm.
China talking about stopping all shipments to the United States, and I mean, dollar store is going to go down, Target's going to go down, Costco that's owned by China is going to go down, Walmart's going to go down. It's going to have a major impact on people that shop at discount stores. That's going to be gone. And we done it to ourselves because when we just decide to join this global economy, now anybody can hold us hostage over whatever products they sell to us.
Don't be talking shit about my Dollar General, Ken. You know what I mean? Like, listen, man, that's my spot.
If we stayed manufacturing stuff and stayed a country that manufactured and fed the world and was lenders to the world and not one that is a consumer to the world, no one could hold us at ransom. I mean, if they decide to shut down straight, so what? We manufacture our own oil here. I mean, dependency is built behind people not understanding that the more skills you learn and you lose, the more dependent you become. I mean, if I learned how to cook eggs and then one day I decided I'm getting older, I'm not going to cook eggs no more. now Denny's and Bob Evans and them is going to be my rescue because they're going to cook it instead of gardening. Why should I learn how to can tomatoes or beans when I can go to the store and buy a can? Then within 1 or 2 generations, you lose that skill that you had. Look at the new cars that they're coming out with, self-driving cars, self-driving semi trucks. In another generation, people, if an EMP happened and they had to get in a car and drive it, they're not going to know how to drive because they lost the skills. Technology is taking over. Yes, technology is a wonderful thing, but it's making us stupid. And
Well,
I hate to say that, but we
let me
are.
say we got probably about 15% of my generation and below that can drive stick, for instance. You know what
Right.
I mean? And then that's kind of what you're alluding to,
Yeah, and I
for
grew up
instance.
with that, so
Exactly. And it's funny because stick for me, I learned on automatic, obviously, it's current times. But then as soon as I learned after that, I kind of became a car guy. So I started driving manual, whether it was even 4 speed, 5 speed, 6 speed. But yeah, it's kind of a lost art for sure.
yeah, and with this global economy, Europe is dependent upon oil, China's dependent upon oil, Japan has no oil wells, they're dependent upon oil. Anybody wants to pull any tricks, and we showed that one picture on the one video that we did that there was like 8 different choke points for oil around the world. Anybody could say, well, I'm going to block this strait and I'm going to stop oil. And if you want, you're going to have to make a deal with me. And that's just plain ridiculous. I mean, that's not the right way to do business in a global economy, but this is the world that we're living in with greedy people trying to be greedy and trying to exude power. So,
Well, look at the Houthis. I mean, they try to control that strait down there by Yemen, and by blasting, some missiles and doing some drone activity down there, and look how well it worked out for them.
yeah, but look at Iran. Iran made them the power that they are. The
I know.
Houthis in Yemen and Iraq is Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah, and Lebanon is it's Hezbollah, and Syria. I forgot who's down there besides Al Qaeda, but they're all proxies of Iran. Iran has evolved. They used to try to fight wars, but in the last 47 years, they've evolved and they use proxies, and they've made their proxies so strong and so well trained and so well armed that the Yemen military cannot throw the Houthis out.
Right.
Lebanon cannot throw Hezbollah out. Syria is a
True.
failed state now. Iraq cannot throw Hezbollah or Islamic Jihad out. These groups, these terrorist groups, are stronger than the militaries of the
And the
nations that
government.
they
Right.
occupy. Right. I mean, this is ridiculous, but it's the world that we live in now.
You know what, Aaron? You just brought up something. And I know this is off topic, but you was talking about the cars.
Yeah.
And one of our viewers sent me a video the other day that I watched, and it was talking about these new cars that Ford is making. And these new cars, they have all these different sensors and stuff that they're making in these new cars now. And they said that Ford has like over 100 patents for this new technology that they're putting out. In these, I think it's like 27 that they're going to start putting this out. But these cars are so advanced that when you get in the car, it does a facial recognition on you
I've heard
every
about
time
that.
you get in the car, and it will run it through a database to make sure you don't have any warrants or you ain't wanted by anybody.
Wow.
Basically, your car becomes the police for real. It will scan you every day. And if you are in the car and if you feel nervous or jittery or it senses that you may be tired or whatever, it will completely shut down. So if you jump in the car, say one day you call yourself late and you know how you frantic and you run and you jump in the car, it may or may not start because it feels that you are too anxious to drive.
Right. Or you could be too drunk or something.
Yes. So that would mean, like, even if you bought this car and paid it off, technically you still don't own this car because you basically just bought a $80,000 snitch. So if you're doing something you don't got no business, it's gonna tell on you. You know what I mean? But why would you want a vehicle that would do all that? Why would you need a vehicle that would actually do facial recognition? Every time you jump in that car, it would do a facial recognition on you and run it through a data bank before you even start your car.
That's crazy.
This is the world that we're coming to.
Right. I mean, people don't realize it, but you know, AI is going to replace a certain amount of jobs now. But in 2029, that's when the new robots are coming out, and that's when they're going to be online, and they're going to place many jobs. I mean, they got a specific robot that will pick crops in the field, so they're not going to need migrant farm workers no more. Bank tellers are going to be a thing of the past. Doctors, from the studies that I've read here recently, the robots are 80% more accurate than the doctors are. And they're being used in some of the hospitals now. The doctors sit there and monitor the situation, but the robots are much more accurate at doing what they do than the human being is. And what we're going to see out of the future of this, because remember, we're in a new period, 2025 to 2035. This AI is serious. We're going to look at mass displacement of people due to jobs. Back when I was laid off and Reagan was in office, the only state that was hiring was Texas. We had a mass migration of people going to Texas to try to find jobs. AI is going to cause a mass displacement of people. You're going to see high employment rates above 10% or even higher. And then people of color, that their unemployment rate is going to be even almost double that. Supply chain will collapse. There's going to be food shortages. Man, it is going to be something. That's the reason why I said prepping right now is no longer at your leisure. It's an intentional act with purpose in mind. But I'll stop there.
Real quick on that whole thing that you were talking about, AB, regarding cars. I definitely think that whole thing is interesting because as long as we're human beings and we live in America, I would assume, right? And you know what they say about assuming, but of course, I would assume that there would be competition. There's always competition, right? So if every other car company is going up with these regulations or whatever, there's always going to be some Floridian white boy homie that's willing to build you a freaking truck that's from 1986. You know what I mean? That thing's running perfect or whatever, even a brand new. But I'm just saying there's going to be car companies out there that are going to not necessarily conform to that if it gets to that level. I truly think that there's always going to be a market to people that like privacy, don't like AI, because we're human beings. There's people nowadays. I mean, AI is widely accepted now, kind of in our society compared to 20 years ago. And listen, there's plenty of people now that say, listen, I don't use AI. I don't use social media. I don't use a cell phone. You know, there's always going to be a market of people that don't want to be involved in that.
And what you're saying, Mike, is true. But I just want to remind everybody, back when I was younger, they got everybody to go from carburetor cars to fuel injected cars because you had to take your car to this place, and they build them everywhere, and they put this thing on your tailpipe and they monitored your emissions, and you couldn't drive that car if it didn't pass I can't think of the name of it. It was some sort of test that they would do. And you know, that was the excuse to force people to move into the fuel injected cars. Then over in California right now, people that do lawn care, they're being forced to move from regular mowers to electric mowers. And I don't know if they're giving them tickets if they don't, but there's some sort of big fine in place in the event that you don't make the conversion. And they're putting things, they pass laws to force you to go a certain direction. And man,
and I do
hate
know
it.
that in the aspect of not only the law aspect of that, because you're talking about essentially regulations, right? And that's what I was going to get at is yes, that is where you'll see the people push back on those regulations. And there's a reason, for instance, in California, for instance, you have to go get a smog every year or whatever, right? Where I live here, there is no smog. There is no smog testing. There is none of that. So it's dependent on the people, the tone of the people that is willing to accept things or not.
Yeah, I think this is like the time where everything is about to change one way or the other, whether it's going to go all the way good or it's going to go all the way bad. You know what I mean? And it's really focused on what's going on, starting with over there, because what's going on over there is affecting everything else globally. But we also need to take into consideration that, you have to be prepared for everything. You know what I mean? This isn't something that you can wait last minute to try to work on, that you can ignore and think that it's just going to go away, because it's not. And like we've said numerous times, a lot of people really don't respond to things until it happens to them. Then once it happens to them, then it becomes a problem, but not until. I would say everybody needs to wake up, but I'm not. Then they say, "Oh, well, you woke." No, I'm just aware of situations. I'm aware of bullshit and bullshit-like intentions. 3. So, everyone needs to actually pay attention to this. Pay attention to what's really going on. Do what you need to do for yourself, for your family. You know what I mean? And a lot of times when we sit back and watching this stuff, and you're watching the news, you're watching these other reports or whatever, you think about what they're telling you, but pay real close attention to what they're not telling you.
What they're doing.
So we're sitting at 107. So we're gonna drop it off for today. First of all, I want to tell everybody thanks once again for coming in, listening to us for an hour. It's a lot of work that gets involved with this, trying to make out these
facts,
making this stuff out every week. It's a lot of research, a lot of work. So do us a favor, hit that like button and subscribe, like, follow, share, all that, and get it out to people. You know what I mean? There's not a whole lot of podcasts that actually comes out here telling people the truth and what's really going on with a lot of the stuff that's going on. You know what I mean? So we would appreciate it greatly if you would do us that favor and put it out to us, and we'll do our best to make sure that we keep bringing all this stuff out to you every week. Like I said, much love to everyone. Go ahead, take it away, Aaron.
Okay, Mike, give me pick 4 while I do my close.
Sure, I got you. Pick 4. Here we go.
Okay. Right now, we've entered a new period, like I said earlier. And with that, we need a new mindset, one that has both intention and purpose. We see geopolitical events are escalating. Most people wait till they're in the middle of something happening and they rush out to try to acquire resources, and they fail. Be the person who can say, I saw this coming and I'm ready for it. The guy on the right, he saw it coming. The one on the left is ready to panic because he didn't see it coming at all. Be the person that's got the information and was reading the signs and is prepped and ready. And I'll end there.
Well, listen, everybody, I can't thank everybody enough for coming in and hanging out with us this morning or this evening. I very much appreciate everybody for hanging out with us, and as well as both Aaron and AB for the amount of research that you guys do on these things. I know how complex it is. I do this daily, so I really do appreciate your guys' input on everything. You guys bring so much resources, or I should say sources to the table, and amount of research that you guys do. I know because I do the same thing, so I really appreciate it. I recognize it. Anyways, if you guys are on my side, make sure you guys go over to AB and hit that like button on his video as well as go subscribe to him, man. Obviously, you see what we do over here. Also, on a side note, if you guys are on my side, we're going to be rating our buddy Biker News Canada. He is live right now, so make sure you guys let him know we're coming through with a raid. But until next week, we'll see you guys here in 7 days. Much love, honor, respect to everybody.